I suppose it's possible that I have been a little overprotective of my daughter. Over the last year or so, I've been trying to cut the cord, so to speak, and allow my daughter to have more independence. Almost a year ago, I allowed her to have a sleepover for her birthday party. She was turning 12, and I knew most of her friends, and they were all good kids. All but one. Her friend that I'm going to call Katie in this story was just that typical bad news girl. She came from a pretty rough family, and it showed. My daughter was always friends with her, but the older they got, I could see Katie going down a darker path. A few weeks before the party, Katie got suspended for hitting a teacher. The only reason that she didn't get expelled was because my daughter wrote a letter to the principal, basically begging them to give her another chance, and they did. I was on the fence about letting Katie come over, but my daughter begged me and I gave in. And what harm could a 12-year-old girl cause in one night? The night came and it was just me alone responsible for the girls who came over. My husband works overnight, so he wasn't going to be home until 8 in the morning. I was a little nervous about having all the kids in the house, but I trusted my daughter to be responsible and keep everyone under control, which, for the most part, she did. Even Katie was well behaved and even respectful. She thanked me twice for allowing her to come over. When I was getting ready for bed, I checked in with the girls and told them to behave. As I was walking away, Katie said one last time with sort of a bit of mischief in her voice, "Thanks again for letting me come over." When I turned back and smiled, she looked at me in a sort of funny way, and I got the sense that she sort of ironically was thanking me now. I was hoping that my daughter didn't tell her that I didn't want her there, but I was sure that I was just overthinking this. At some point in the middle of the night, I heard a loud bang coming from down the hall. It was like the sound of a pan falling off the shelf or something. I froze for a minute thinking about the horrible idea of an intruder, and I went into bear mom mode and decided to investigate the noise. When I got into the hallway, I could hear the muffled sounds of whispers, and one of the whispers was very aggressive and angry sounding, but I couldn't make out the words. The other whisper was clearly the sound of someone whimpering. I could hear things like, "Please no," and "We don't have to do this." I didn't have any idea what to think at this point, and I turned the light on in the hallway and the whispers stopped immediately. I heard the light footsteps of jogging heading back in the direction of the living room. I still didn't know if those whispers were some of the girls or somebody else. I briskly made my way down the hall into the kitchen. I still haven't said anything, and the light was on and there was a pan lying on the counter. It looked like it must have fallen out of the strainer where it was drying. That must have been the noise that woke me up. As I was moving the pan back into the strainer, I noticed one of the steak knives was removed from the knife block that I kept on my counter. I'm very meticulous about my kitchen, so the fact that a knife was missing gave me an immediate pause. I rushed to the living room and was relieved when I saw all of the girls sleeping. I was wired after this. I was trying to figure out what on earth the two girls in the kitchen were talking about, and more importantly, why was a knife missing? I decided to stay in the kitchen and just read until the sun came up, which was only a few hours away at that point. I just felt like I needed to stay awake, just in case something might happen. Not long after, I made a cup of coffee and started reading. Katie came to the doorway and asked what I was doing awake. I told her I couldn't sleep and I was going to read in the kitchen. She looked annoyed and confused and eventually turned back around and went to sleep. I just assumed that she got up to use the restroom, but it didn't occur to me until later that when she confronted me in the kitchen, she never went to the bathroom, so she literally got up just to confront me, which, in hindsight, is a little weird. At least I think so. Morning finally came and all the girls were just being silly in the living room. I made them some pancakes and the strange uneasiness eventually faded away. One by one, the girls were getting picked up. I just happened to be standing near the living room when Katie was packing up her bag, and I noticed her putting the kitchen knife in her bag. I know I'm a coward, but I didn't say anything. Now say what you will, but in that moment, I felt genuine fear. Something was not right. Katie, who thanked me several times the night before, left and just looked at me when she did. I said goodbye and she turned and left without saying anything. Thankfully, nothing more happened regarding this story. Well, at least nothing that I know of anyway. I have no idea what Katie wanted to do with that knife, and I had no idea who the other girl crying was that night. I still have nightmares sometimes thinking about what would have happened if I didn't wake up that night. Did I potentially stop Katie from doing something really heinous? Was I the target? Now, I'm sure I'm overthinking this. My husband thinks it's a stretch to think a 12-year-old can be such a monster, and also is pretty frustrated at me for just letting her leave with some of our kitchenware. But I don't know. My gut is telling me another story completely. What do you guys think?
Hey guys, thanks so much for all the support. If you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, please feel free to do so. This is about the time when I first joined the Instagram and also learned a life lesson through that. Even though I was in 10th grade, I did not have a phone. My friends used to tell me about Instagram. That's how they could enjoy reels, share stories, chat, video calls, go live, etc. My father promised me that if I get at least 80% in the final exam, he would buy me a phone. So I studied day and night to prepare for the exam and was finally managed to score 89%. As promised, he bought me a smartphone. I asked my friends about Instagram and installed it. After that, I created my first Instagram account with the help of my friends. At the time, I did not know that there's a feature for the privacy on Instagram, so my profile was public and anyone could message me or see my posts. I was so happy from the fact that now I also had Instagram just like other people and could do all the fun stuff my friends used to do. I started posting my pictures over there and started coming live. But one day when I logged into the account, I saw many weird messages. They were dirty and some of them were cussing me. I opened the first message and it said, "Hey, I paid you online. When the hell would you showed me your nude live video?" I couldn't understand why this person has DM'd me such a message. I opened the next message and it was also saying something similar. Just like that, there were tons of messages blaming me for taking their money and not performing pornographic things for them. I had no idea what was happening to me. What had I done to make all these people so angry at me? I couldn't figure out the answer, and I was scared. That was when my friend Anna called me. She told me that someone had made a fake account of me and was scamming people by promising them live sexual videos. She told me the name of the account and I searched for it, and when I found it, I saw dozens of almost nude pictures which had my face edited over them. I got scared. The first thing that came to my mind that if my parents found out these pictures, they would kill me. I also thought that everyone at school may have seen these pictures and they may have misunderstood that it's me, just like the people who are messaging me. I called Anna and asked her, what should I do? She told me that the first thing I had to do was to make my account private. She instructed me throughout the process, and my account was finally private. She told me to report that account on Instagram. I reported that account and DM'd everyone who had messaged me, telling me that it was a fake account and I'm not that kind of person. And after that, I blocked everyone. But that's not the whole story. At the time, I thought that everything is back to normal, but I was wrong. One day, I got a message request from a guy. The name on his account was DarkGale09. His message was, "I was just checking your account and I thought you were pretty. Can we be friends?" I replied, "Of course we can," and started talking to him after that. One day, he asked me if we could meet. I was just a naive little girl, so I said yes. He asked to meet at the movie theater in the evening and watch a movie. We decided to meet on Saturday. The day when I was supposed to meet him, I wore a cute dress, tied my hair in a ponytail, and headed out to the movie theater. After reaching the theater, I waited for a bit, and then he came. We greeted each other and had a small talk and then went inside the movie hall. The movie we were supposed to watch was not that famous, so there were only a few people in the theater. After the movie, he asked to walk me from the theater to the subway, and I agreed. When we were walking, I had this weird vibe. There's something really wrong was about to happen. I looked at Dale, and he had a weird expression on his face. I got nervous. Dale was practically a stranger to me until we met on the Instagram. He was leading me toward a secluded area, and my sixth sense was telling me to stop. I texted Anna that I might be in trouble and shared my location. When we reached to a place where absolutely no one was there, he started speaking. You know, I was one of the victims of your scam. I sent you my 3 months allowance, but never got what was promised, so I'm going to take it on my own. After saying this, he looked at me with an evil grin and tried to grab me. I somehow managed to get away and started running. I was so scared and was regretting to ever trusting a stranger. As I was running away from him, he was following me the entire time. I immediately called Anna and told her about the situation. Anna told me that she got my text and is on her way with her brother. Her brother worked for the police. That was the reason I contacted her. She told me that they would be there within 15 minutes and asked me to stall him while staying safe. I was hiding in a parking lot and watching Dale search for me in frustration. That was when Dale suddenly spotted me and started to come towards me. I tried to run, but he caught me and pinned me down to the ground. As he was about to rip my clothes, a hand came from behind and pulled him away from me. It was Anna's brother. I was trembling in fear when Anna hugged me and told me that everything will be fine. After beating him and warning him thoroughly, Anna's brother let him go. After that, they dropped me at my home. Anna's brother gave me his number, saying that I can call him any time I'm in trouble. Ever since that day, I stopped responding to strangers' texts, and I learned a very important life lesson: that I should never trust a stranger.
After the party ended and everyone left, I was sitting among the pile of gifts, unwrapping and giving most of them disheartening looks. Apart from the thoughtless gifts, some were so unique and intelligent that I was impressed by the person who gave them. As I adorned my wrist with the charming handmade bracelet Ella had gifted me, I was drawn to an exceptional-looking gift box on the coffee table. It was beautifully wrapped with a red and gold ribbon, but no name tag was in sight. While inspecting the gift, I couldn't help but wonder who it was from and what was inside. Curiosity got the best of me, and I cautiously tore off the wrapping paper, revealing a stunning stuffed bear. Its fur was soft and fluffy, and its eyes gleamed like twinkling stars. I was in awe of its beauty and couldn't wait to add it to my collection of cherished gifts. However, I quickly snapped out of my trance and began to tidy up the mess of wrapping paper strewn across the living room floor before my clean freak mother caught me. After cleaning up everything, I went to my room to relax my body through a nice nap. But as I sat on the bed, I was suddenly startled by the sound of static emanating from the living room's television. It was an unusual noise, as we rarely used the outdated device. Irritated by it not stopping, I called out to my mother, wondering if she had turned on the television. When I received no answer, I decided to investigate and see what was happening there. As soon as I entered the room, I noticed her standing in the living area, fumbling with the buttons of the TV remote in exasperation. I couldn't resist a chuckle as I asked her, "What are you doing?" She glared at me with frustration written all over her face and replied, "This stupid thing isn't working." Evidently, she was on the verge of losing her patience and throwing the remote against the wall. "May I assist you with that?" I offered, noticing the struggle on her face as she held the remote. "Allow me to demonstrate." Taking the remote from her hand, I navigated to the TV mode and selected HDMI 1, causing the static screen to transform into a normal display. "Wipe that smirk off your face. Your father is to blame for not teaching me how to use it," she explained as I handed her the remote. Despite her scolding, I couldn't help but burst into laughter, causing her to feel embarrassed. After all the hosting and dancing at my birthday party, I was utterly exhausted, so I eagerly returned to my room to take a much-needed nap. As I lay on my bed and closed my eyes, I drifted to sleep within moments. Unfortunately, my peaceful slumber was cut short by the same annoying static noise from the living room. Despite hoping my mother would turn it off, the noise persisted and I couldn't ignore it any longer. When I got to the room, I was shocked that my mom was not there. What infuriated me even more was that she had left the TV on. Annoyed, I reached for the remote and turned it off. However, as I began to walk away, I heard the TV turn on again. My heart began to race with unease as I slowly turned around to investigate. To my surprise, the TV was still on. With trembling hands, I approached the plug and gingerly removed it, finally ending the eerie noises. After heading to my room and getting into bed, I suddenly received a jump scare by the sound of eldritch whispers from beneath my bed. My entire body began to tremble as beads of sweat formed on my forehead. The whispers persisted and grew louder, leaving me with no choice but to check the source of the unsettling noise. As my heart raced with terror, I mustered up the courage to switch on my flashlight and peered beneath the bed. To my surprise, nothing was there, which only heightened my fear. Carefully rising to my feet, I was suddenly jolted by a knock on the window, sending shivers down my spine as a chill filled the room. With trepidation, I slowly approached the window, but my heart leaped at the presence of a young girl. She appeared to be around my age, with an ashen complexion. Her long, raven-black hair hung in a tangled, disheveled mess, and she wore a dingy white dress that looked like it had not seen a wash in quite some time. As she muttered to herself incoherently, I couldn't help but feel a sense of unease. Despite my trembling fear, I managed to stutter out a question to the mysterious girl as to why she was knocking on my window. Her response was a murmured string of words that initially eluded my understanding, until she repeated them. The bear. I was left perplexed and chilled to the bone, my mind racing to make sense of her cryptic message. The chill in the night air only intensified, causing me to shiver uncontrollably as I struggled to comprehend the situation. That was when I remembered the stuffed bear that I found on my living room table. I asked her if she was talking about the plushie, but the only words she unremitted were the bear. Without any other viable option, I made my way to the haven of my bedroom closet and cautiously unlatched it. With a sense of urgency, I rummaged through the assortment of gifts, ultimately settling on the plush bear as my offering. The bear's intricate details and exquisite craftsmanship nearly swayed me to keep it for myself, but my heart ached as I looked at the girl before me. She seemed to have come from a place of hardship and misfortune, and in that moment, I knew I had to do the right thing. Though it pained me deeply, I took a deep breath and slowly reached the window, extending the bear to her with trembling hands. She instantly grabbed the bear from my hand and flashed me a bright smile before she sauntered away, leaving me in a state of shock. I stood there transfixed as she vanished before my eyes. My heart raced in fear as I woke in a cold sweat, realizing it was a nightmare. Without hesitation, I sprinted towards my closet to check the bear, and as I swung open the closet door and rummaged through the drawer, the bear was nowhere to be seen. The knot in my stomach was followed by my throbbing heart as my eyes caught sight of a handprint on the window pane. The presence of the handprint was enough to make me lose my footing as my body involuntarily trembled with fear. I have kept this spine-chilling experience to myself for years and am hesitant to share it with anyone. My mother didn't believe me when I first confided in her, so I've kept it bottled up ever since. The haunting memory of that young girl still lingers, and I wonder who could have left the ominous bear on my coffee table. I can't shake off the feeling of unease I experienced that day, and I fear that I may never know the truth behind what happened.
No one knew where it came from. We all went to sleep the night before, and it was there the next morning. Not even the owners of the house on both sides had a clue how it got there. Neither homeowner ever heard as much as the hiss of air brakes. During the whole of that night, the only real indication of how it arrived was the trailer was sitting upon. I was still relatively young at the time, around 13, but the subject was a hot topic around the neighborhood, and every person I spoke to, whether a kid or an adult, was eager to talk about it. Our neighborhood was somewhere new and off by itself, and it wasn't out of the ordinary for folks to dump things out there. Dogs and cats were the most common, but 1 or 2 cars would turn up every year. A house, though, no one ever seen that or expected it. The days passed, but no information could be gotten from anywhere. Soon, it began to take on a spooky and haunted reputation, along with its phantom like a rival in the dark of the night. It did look a little familiar to that house from Psycho. The stories first reached me while I was talking to a friend's younger brother. Among the grade school kids, the house was becoming a very real symbol of fear, although it was just an old, empty house to me. This fear didn't prevent some of the more adventurous of them just entering and exploring it. I witnessed a particularly funny episode just by chance. While loafing aimlessly around the streets, I was passing by in time to see a preteen boy running from the house in terror, claiming that something had grabbed him. Whether his imagination had gotten the best of him, or an older kid was having a bit of fun, the horror put upon this abandoned house had fully taken root in the neighborhood. While this was going on, a real boogeyman had been forgotten about. I'll not put his actual name here, not because of privacy, but that of the victims. We'll call him Rudy. Rudy had grown up in the neighborhood, and until he was arrested, was well liked by a lot of the parents, had voiced their fears early on because of his habit of hanging around younger boys. When he was released from jail, he was allowed to move in with his folks. Anyone who wasn't aware of his proclivities beforehand knew now every parent in the neighborhood watched him closely. But when the ghost house popped up, people's focus is shifted. A few of us teenagers were riding our bikes around the neighborhood. The father of a boy we'll call Bill was looking for a son. I overheard him speaking to a young kid close by, asking if he had seen him. Nonchalantly, the boy said that he had seen Bill going into that ghost house with Rudy just a few minutes prior. And this got my full attention. The shock of the father's face is still crystal clear in my mind. I turned around and watched the father run full speed into the house. Most of us there stood transfixed as we saw Bill's dad disappear inside. Things were quiet for about the first 30 seconds. Then, all of a sudden, a loud ruckus broke out, followed by Rudy flying out of the doorway and onto the ground below. Billy's dad was close behind. He leapt onto Rudy, throwing fists as he landed. Bill came out a few seconds later crying for his dad to stop. His dad ignored him, standing up and kicking Rudy to the ground over and over. Rudy eventually got to his feet and ran for home. Billy and his dad were right behind him. I continued to watch until they disappeared from my sight. Billy and Rudy would both claim later on that nothing had happened between them. Either way, Billy's dad had the support of most of the community, and Rudy declined to press charges on him. Rudy would eventually move away and out of the minds of most of us, until he was arrested 3 years later for abducting and killing 2 boys near his new home. Only then did we realize how lucky Bill had been. That night, as I'd fallen asleep, I remember wondering what was going to happen to Rudy and Bill's dad. When I woke up, things were normal for a summer morning. Around 9, I was making a bowl of cereal when I got a phone call. It was a friend of mine, and he was short of breath and excited. The ghost house. It's gone, man. I hung up and hopped on my bike. When I arrived at the end of the streets, I looked down and saw the empty lot as it used to be. I rode down to it, and a small group were gathering talking to the neighbors. It was much the same as the morning when it appeared. They hadn't heard or seen anything strange. It seemed to leave just as silently as it had arrived. To this day, I haven't met a soul who knows anything about that house. Sometimes I think I dreamt the whole thing up. But then I speak to an old friend from the neighborhood, and my memories are confirmed. Of course, I don't believe it was haunted or anything like that, but I know for sure that something was wrong about it. And I pray that I never see it again.